Have you ever taken a sip of a soft drink and suddenly been transported back to your childhood? Maybe it was the sound of a glass bottle opening on a hot summer afternoon, the fizz that bubbled over the rim, the colorful logo on a vending machine outside the local grocery store, or perhaps it was the taste of a soda you haven't seen in decades. For baby boomers and Generation X, soft drinks were much more than beverages. They were part of growing up. They were sold at neighborhood drugstores, movie theaters, baseball games, drive-in restaurants, family picnics, and roadside diners. Every region seemed to have its own favorite brand. Some competed with Coca-Cola and Pepsi for generations. Others exploded in popularity before disappearing almost overnight. Many introduced bold flavors years ahead of their time. Some became victims of changing consumer tastes. Others were swallowed by giant corporations. Today, we're taking a nostalgic journey through the forgotten soda brands that once filled refrigerators across America. Some of these names may instantly bring back memories. Others might surprise you. But each one tells the fascinating story of an era when soft drinks were as much about personality as they were about taste. Let's begin with one of the oldest names in American soda history, Royal Crown Cola, better known as RC Cola. Long before Coke and Pepsi dominated the market, RC Cola had already built a loyal following. Its story began in Georgia in 1905, when pharmacist Claude Hatcher developed a new soft drink after refusing to purchase syrup from Coca-Cola. That bold decision eventually gave birth to Royal Crown Cola. For decades, RC became known as the cola for people who wanted something different. It was often sold alongside moon pies throughout the American South, creating one of the most famous snack combinations in history. Many restaurants proudly served RC instead of Coca-Cola. The company was also responsible for several important industry firsts. It introduced one of the earliest canned soft drinks and was among the first major brands to offer caffeine-free cola. Despite these innovations, RC struggled against the enormous advertising budgets of Coke and Pepsi. Television commercials became increasingly expensive. Shelf space grew more competitive. Although RC Cola still exists in certain markets today, its national presence has faded dramatically. Yet for millions of Americans, the blue and red RC logo still represents summers spent on front porches and family barbecues. Another forgotten favorite carried a name almost everyone recognized. Nehi. Introduced in 1924, Nehi quickly became famous for its incredible variety of fruit flavors: grape, orange, peach, blue cream, strawberry, root beer, and many others. Unlike traditional colas, Nehi celebrated bright colors and bold fruit flavors that appealed to children and adults alike. Its grape soda became especially legendary. Television audiences may remember Nehi from the popular sitcom MASH, where Corporal Radar O'Reilly frequently dreamed about drinking his favorite grape Nehi back home. That small detail introduced an entirely new generation to the brand. As larger beverage companies expanded nationwide, Nehi gradually lost shelf space. Today, it's rarely found outside specialty stores and nostalgic candy shops. But for those who remember it, few sodas captured childhood quite like an ice-cold bottle of great Nehi. Then came a drink that promised something very different. Not relaxation, not refreshment, energy. Jolt Cola. When Jolt debuted in 1985, it ignored traditional advertising entirely. Instead, it proudly proclaimed, "all the sugar and twice the caffeine." At a time when health-conscious products were becoming more common, Jolt took the opposite approach. It targeted college students pulling all-night study sessions, gamers, programmers, night shift workers, anyone who needed a serious boost. Long before energy drinks like Red Bull and Monster existed, Jolt became the original high-caffeine soft drink. It developed an almost cult-like following. Unfortunately, changing health concerns and increased competition eventually weakened the brand. After several ownership changes and financial problems, Jolt disappeared from most stores. Today, many beverage historians consider it the grandfather of the modern energy drink industry. Another famous soda followed an entirely different path. Tab. Introduced by Coca-Cola in 1963, Tab became America's first successful diet cola. Its name came from the idea of keeping tabs on your weight. Years before Diet Coke existed, Tab attracted millions of loyal customers. Its distinctive pink cans became instantly recognizable. For decades, many consumers refused to drink anything else. Then, everything changed in 1982. Coca-Cola introduced Diet Coke. Almost overnight, the company's marketing shifted toward its newer product. Although Tab continued surviving for decades with devoted fans, its popularity steadily declined. Finally, in 2020, Coca-Cola officially discontinued Tab after nearly 60 years. For many longtime drinkers, it felt like losing an old friend. Perhaps no soft drink created more excitement and disappointment than Crystal Pepsi. In the early 1990s, clear beverages became one of America's hottest trends. Consumers associated clear products with purity, freshness, health. Pepsi responded with Crystal Pepsi, a transparent cola unlike anything people had ever seen. The launch generated enormous publicity. Television commercials featured dramatic music and futuristic imagery. Curious customers rushed to stores. Sales initially exploded. Then something unexpected happened. People couldn't accept the taste. Even though the flavor resembled regular Pepsi, their brains expected something completely different because the drink was clear. Many describe the experience as confusing. Within only a few years, Crystal Pepsi disappeared. Ironically, it later became one of the most requested, discontinued products in soft drink history. Limited re-releases sold out almost immediately, proving nostalgia can be just as powerful as taste. Another unforgettable soda arrived with an explosion. Literally, Surge. Released by Coca-Cola in 1996, Surge targeted teenagers who loved extreme sports, loud music, and high-energy lifestyles. Bright green packaging, bold advertising, a citrus flavor packed with caffeine. Everything about Surge screamed excitement. It quickly developed a passionate fan base. Then, only a few years later, changing consumer preferences pushed Surge off store shelves. But the story didn't end there. Fans refused to let it die. Online petitions gathered thousands of signatures. Social media campaigns demanded its return. Eventually, Coca-Cola listened. Surge briefly returned to limited markets, becoming one of the earliest examples of consumers successfully reviving a discontinued product through the internet. Not many soft drinks can claim that achievement. Then there was Slice. When Pepsi introduced Slice in 1984, it promoted the drink as containing real fruit juice. Orange Slice became an immediate success. Soon came lemon lime, grape, apple, cherry cola, fruit punch, and several other flavors. Its colorful labels and refreshing taste made Slice especially popular during the late 1980s. School lunches, birthday parties, Little League games. Slice seemed to be everywhere, but competition intensified. Brands like Sprite and Sierra Mist captured much of the lemon lime market. Pepsi eventually phased out Slice in North America. Although versions continue to exist in some international markets, many Americans remember Slice as another favorite that quietly disappeared. Perhaps no soda ever embraced weirdness quite like OK Soda. Launched by Coca-Cola in 1993, OK Soda intentionally rejected traditional advertising. Its commercials were strange, its artwork looked like underground comic books, its slogans practically admitted the drink wasn't extraordinary. One campaign even joked that the soda was simply okay. The company hoped Generation X would appreciate the irony. Instead, most customers were simply confused. Sales never matched expectations. Within 2 years, OK Soda vanished completely. Today, collectors eagerly search for its unusual cans in promotional materials. Sometimes, a failed marketing experiment becomes more interesting than a successful one. One of America's oldest beverages, deserves far more recognition than it usually receives. Hires Root Beer. Created in 1876 by pharmacist Charles Elmer Hires, it became one of the very first commercially successful root beers in American history. Originally sold as a concentrated extract for home preparation, Hires eventually became a bottled sensation. For decades, families enjoyed Hires at soda fountains, diners, and neighborhood pharmacies. Because brands like A&W, Mug, and Barks grew larger, Hires slowly disappeared from restaurant menus and grocery shelves. Although its production became increasingly limited, Hires remains one of the true pioneers that helped build America's love affair with soft drinks. And perhaps that's what makes forgotten sodas so fascinating. They weren't simply beverages. They became part of birthdays, summer vacations, baseball games, family picnics, movie nights, first dates, and childhood memories that still make people smile decades later. Sometimes all it takes is seeing an old bottle or hearing a familiar name to remember an entire chapter of life. Yet those weren't the only soda brands that disappeared from supermarket shelves. Some vanished so quietly that many people don't even remember they ever existed. One of those was Teem. Introduced by Pepsi Cola in 1959, Teem was created to compete directly with 7-Up. It offered a crisp lemon-lime flavor years before Sprite entered the market. For decades, Teem was a familiar sight in grocery stores, restaurants, and vending machines across America. Families often chose it as a lighter alternative to cola. Its simple green and white logo became instantly recognizable. But everything changed in the early 1960s when Coca-Cola launched Sprite. Aggressive advertising, national distribution, and enormous marketing budgets gradually pushed Teem into the background. By the late 1980s, most Americans had forgotten it even existed. Pepsi quietly discontinued the brand, leaving only memories for those who grew up drinking it. Another citrus soda suffered a similar fate. Wink. Introduced in 1965, Wink wasn't a lemon-lime soda. Instead, it featured a bold grapefruit flavor that stood apart from nearly everything else on the market. Its slogan described it as the sassy one. Unlike sweeter soft drinks, Wink appealed to adults looking for something refreshing with a slight bite. It became especially popular during backyard cookouts and summer afternoons. But grapefruit soda never reached the mass appeal of cola or lemon-lime drinks. As supermarket shelves became increasingly crowded, Wink gradually disappeared from many regions. Although it occasionally resurfaces in limited markets, it never regained the popularity it once enjoyed. Then came a soda that many millennials still remember with mixed emotions: Pepsi Blue. Released in 2002, Pepsi Blue was impossible to ignore. Its electric blue color looked almost futuristic. Its berry-inspired flavor was unlike traditional cola. Pepsi hoped the unusual appearance would attract younger consumers. Instead, reactions were sharply divided. Some loved its bold sweetness. Others described it as tasting more like candy than soda. Sales quickly slowed. Within only 2 years, Pepsi discontinued the product. Ironically, years later, nostalgia transformed Pepsi Blue into a collector's favorite. When Pepsi briefly reintroduced it for a limited time, fans rushed to stores to relive a small piece of their childhood. Sometimes memories improve products more than recipes ever could. Another forgotten name with a surprisingly long history is Bubble Up. Originally introduced in 1999, Bubble Up proudly marketed itself as the kiss of lemon, the kiss of lime. Long before Sprite and Sierra Mist, Bubble Up offered a refreshing citrus flavor, with cheerful advertising and colorful branding. During the 1940s and 1950s, it enjoyed nationwide popularity. Children recognized its playful mascot. Families ordered it at soda fountains. Roadside diners proudly served it in ice-cold glass bottles. But like so many independent soda companies, Bubble Up struggled as the beverage industry became dominated by giant corporations. Ownership changed repeatedly. Distribution shrank. Although the brand still exists in limited areas today, Many Americans haven't seen a bottle in decades. Its cheerful advertisements now survive mostly inside collectors' museums and vintage memorabilia collections. Then, there's Aspen soda. If you don't remember Aspen, you're certainly not alone. Introduced by Pepsi in 1978, Aspen featured a crisp apple flavor designed to stand apart from traditional colas. The company believed consumers were ready for something different. The drink developed a loyal following among those looking for a refreshing alternative. Unfortunately, the broader public never fully embraced apple-flavored soda. Within just a few years, Aspen quietly disappeared. Today, vintage advertisements featuring smiling families enjoying Aspen feel like snapshots from another era of American marketing. Another fascinating story belongs to Shasta. Unlike many brands we've discussed, Shasta never completely disappeared. Instead, it slowly faded from the national spotlight. Founded in California during the 1880s, Shasta became famous for offering dozens of flavors at affordable prices. Grocery stores proudly stocked entire sections devoted to Shasta. Black cherry, tiki punch, California dreamin', cream soda, ginger ale, root beer, orange, cola. There seemed to be a flavor for everyone. Families often bought Shasta because it offered tremendous value without sacrificing variety. Although the brand still survives today, it no longer enjoys the cultural influence it once had during the 1960s, 70s, and 90s. For many boomers, seeing a Shasta can instantly recall family reunions, church picnics, and neighborhood gatherings. Perhaps one of the saddest stories belongs to Teem's forgotten competitors. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, dozens of diet sodas appeared hoping to capitalize on changing consumer habits. Most disappeared almost immediately. Only a handful survived long enough to become household names. The soft drink business proved brutally competitive. Every year brought new flavors, new packaging, new slogans, yet very few remained successful. Even excellent products struggled when they couldn't secure enough shelf space or advertising dollars. Walking through a supermarket today, it's easy to forget just how many soft drinks have come and gone over the past century. Some lasted 50 years, others barely survived 5. But nearly all left behind loyal fans who still remember exactly how they tasted. Looking back, it's remarkable how closely soda reflects American culture. During the post-war years, colorful advertising promised happiness in every bottle. Drive-in restaurants became gathering places for teenagers. Glass bottles clinked inside wooden crates. Families packed coolers full of soda before heading to the beach. Baseball stadiums echoed with vendors shouting, "Ice-cold soda!" Every major holiday seemed to include a favorite soft drink. These beverages became woven into everyday life. Then, during the 1980s and 1990s, competition intensified. Companies experimented with bold new flavors, clear colas, fruit-infused drinks, extra caffeine, artificial sweeteners, limited editions, celebrity endorsements. Some became enormous successes. Others disappeared almost as quickly as they arrived. Perhaps that's what makes forgotten soda brands so fascinating. They remind us that even the biggest companies sometimes misjudge what consumers really want. No executive at Coca-Cola expected OK Soda to fail so dramatically. Few believed Crystal Pepsi would vanish within a few short years. Pepsi executives certainly hoped Pepsi Blue would become a lasting success. History had different plans. Yet failure doesn't erase memories. In fact, it often strengthens them. Today, vintage soda signs decorate restaurants across America. Collectors spend thousands of dollars on old vending machines. Glass bottles from discontinued brands regularly appear at auctions. Some unopened cans sell for astonishing prices simply because they're rare. Entire museums celebrate the golden age of soft drinks. People proudly display vintage bottle openers, delivery crates, and advertising signs inside their homes. Why? Because these brands represent much more than sugary drinks. They represent childhood, family road trips, corner drugstores with working soda fountains, Friday nights after football games, summer afternoons riding bicycles, fishing trips with grandpa, movie theaters before giant refill cups, birthday parties where every child reached into an icy cooler searching for their favorite flavor. The drinks themselves may be gone, but the memories remain remarkably fresh. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson these forgotten brands leave behind. Products come and go. Corporations rise and fall. Marketing trends change. Consumer tastes evolve. But when a product becomes part of people's happiest memories, it earns something far more valuable than market share. It earns a place in history. The next time you walk through a grocery store and see hundreds of colorful bottles lining the shelves, remember this. Many of today's biggest brands won't always be there. Just as RC Cola, Nehi, Tab, Crystal Pepsi, Surge, Slice, Teem, Wink, Bubble Up, Aspen, High's Root Beer, and so many others once seemed permanent, even today's favorites may someday become memories for future generations. One day, today's children may tell their grandchildren about the sodas they loved growing up. And just like baby boomers smile when someone mentions grape Nehi or an ice-cold RC Cola in a glass bottle, future generations will experience that same wave of nostalgia. Because while flavors change, packaging evolves, and brands disappear, the memories attached to them never lose their fizz. If you enjoyed this trip back through the golden age of soft drinks, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more nostalgic documentaries about forgotten brands, classic foods, vintage America, and the good old days. And turn on notifications so you never miss another journey into the past. Now we'd love to hear from you. Which discontinued soda do you miss the most? Was it Tab, Surge, Crystal Pepsi, Slice, Jolt Cola, Nehi, RC Cola, Teem, Wink, or another forgotten favorite? Tell us your memories in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the sweetest memories come from a bottle that hasn't been made in years.